Hi guys, hi, surprise here, your local pothead expanding our universe, back with another video. Yes sir. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing well. I hope your week, I hope you may kickstart on the right foot, yeah. And if not, there's always a new chance to try again. Like, as long as you're still alive, as long as you have the life, there's always an opportunity to try again. So kama leo haijaweza, tunajaribu tena kesho, right? Right. I am doing okay. I've actually been okay. Just a lot of pondering and thinking. Na mimi nikufikiria ndo itaniua. Oops. Yeah, but other than that, I'm doing well. I can't really complain. I'm doing my best. I feel like that's enough. Yeah, there's so much more that I'd want. There's so much more that I know I deserve, but since I'm here at the moment, I'm going to live here fully, right? Yeah. On today's video, I want to talk about how you need to form a very strong opinion of yourself. Otherwise, you will end up internalizing the beliefs that other people have about you, whether true or not. Let's get into it. So, venye tu nilisema kwa the previous video before this one, the previous yapping video before this one, the one on my ramblings about hypersexualization and carrying that the weight of it all and shame and guilt and all that. Nilisema venye the reason as to why nilikuwa najiuliza mbona ninashinda nimerefer to like my childhood, like let's say my my development years, my teenage years, and the reason I figured out the reason as to why I keep referring to them is because in my self-reflection I'm usually able to find out the root of whatever it is that I am thinking about, yes. And when I'm reflecting, most of the times nitapata like a memory that takes me back to childhood, where I left her, where I left surprise once that thing happened that shifted everything and shifted like my behavior and my view on life, wherever the shift happened at, that is where I usually find myself going back to when I'm shooting these videos or when I'm just like self-reflecting and all. That is why I refer to my childhood and teenagehood, all those, like my younger years. Cause basically chenye tunafanya ni tuna reconnect, yeah. Now that nimefika point yenye ninaweza fikiria, ninaweza make like my critical thinking is there, my frontal lobe is developed, all those, it only makes sense that I'll go back to fetch myself where I left myself. Yeah, with that said, the reason I started to explain all that ni juu nilikuwa ninataka to refer to like high school. I feel like for the first time I was able to like try and figure out my identity vizuri through high school, but so much of my identity in high school was like impacted by the kind of environment that I've grown up in. So there's this one particular person that I've grown up around that I feel like each time nilikuwa ninajiangalia, nilikuwa ninamuona, yeah. But ilifika point badala ya mimi kumuona, ninajiona, nafikiria sasa hivyo vile huyo msee ako, hivyo ndio mimi niko. You get? Cause I remember, so nakumbuka like when my autobooks through high school, so you'd give your friends to write something about you or something that they want to write, all that. Nakumbuka hizo mavitu za lyrics and all. So something that I used to get a lot is I'm moody in high school, yeah. And I never really saw it as being moody. I just saw it as me being able to, okay, now I have the the perfect words for it, yeah, the right words for it, but then I really didn't. Mi nilikuwa tu ninaona ni kama si mimi tu ninaenda na the flow, sasa ninafaa kucheka wakati kitu imenibo, you know. And I used to dislike the fact that people would say I'm moody because I didn't see myself like that. But when they would describe me like that, I would see this particular person that I have grown up around, yeah. And I'd be like, please don't say I'm moody because this particular person that I've grown up around is so moody. I wouldn't want to be told that I'm moody. I don't think I've reached those levels, Sindio. But I came to realize that the more I kept looking at them so much, the more I kept seeing how they reflect in me, to the extent that now I am taking up those traits. Jui, Sindio, because this is the person that is around me sana consistently, right? And once hivi vile niko sahi, at this point in my life penye niko, nikiangalia huyo mse mwenye nina refer to, yeah, bado ana behave vile alikuwa ana behave me nikiwa younger. Okay, they are older than me, okay? So yeah, bado ana behave hivyo vile alikuwa ana behave. But nikijiangalia mimi, ninaona where I made like, you know, tweaks here and there in my personality and the kind of person that I am, in how I'd want to react to different things in my behavior. I can see the difference between my behavior and their behavior. And now, because I know myself, I know what is mine and what is not mine. Even when they are projecting on me, I can tell that that is a projection. Right? Right now, I know the core of me. I have been able to sit with myself long enough to actually study myself and learn myself. And I keep learning myself every day. But there's certain things that I know for a fact they are the core of who I am. Sindio, that can never change. Right? And I've spoken about this before. Who you are in your core, that is who you really are. That video is called Self-Identity. Pun intended, yeah. Go watch it. It's among my first videos on YouTube. I was talking about, yeah, who you are at your core. That's who you are at the core of you. That is who you really are. And when you sit down and you actually reflect, you self-reflect, you can see when certain identities were actually projections from the environment around you, and certain identities are actually who you are. Sindio, cause something else. We usually create identities so that we can be able to survive through certain situations. So you'd find that I've threaded this before, where I was listening to For Mannerless Women, the episode where Adele was hosting Temina, and they were saying the way we usually create these identities for the sake of survival, but then we live in those identities so much that we forget that they were just supposed to be like masks for us to be able to get through that particular situation. Yeah. So the reason as to why nimesema you need to form a very strong opinion about yourself so that you do not internalize the beliefs that other people hold of you, whether true or false, is because sasa unaona your identity. Ukimit na mtu, the identity, let's say you've met with someone for the first time, that identity that they project on you as though that is you, unless you know yourself, you'd actually think that is true because they're the ones who are experiencing you from the outside. Hao ndio wanakuona, right? So you'd actually think that is true. Without the discernment, without the authenticity, the groundedness in your own truth, in your identity, you will lose yourself quite easily. Which has reminded me of another quote that I saw. Actually, nimeiona leo asubuhi. Especially if you're someone who unajijua. Especially if you're someone who una feeling tu ni kama you are the odd one out. In this society yenye people would just rather be sheep and go with the group mentality. So if you are somebody who has learned how to form their own identity, how to form their own opinions, how to form them, like you dig deeper into yourself, you know yourself intimately. Of course, people would want to project certain things on you. Not even people would want to project. People are always projecting. Yeah. And especially if you are somebody who lives in authenticity, that rubs people the wrong way, because si watu wengi wanawezanga kuishi hivyo. Unajua hizi ni vitu zenye nasemanga. The reason as to why I love this channel of mine is because I bet I've said this before in another video, but when I'm saying it today, I'm saying it with new insight, with deeper understanding. Like, it's actually deeper than just words. It's deeper than that, yeah. So I was to read that nini. Let me just read it before we continue. Even a rose forgets about her beauty when all she's reminded of are her thorns. Kuna watu wenye hawatawaiweza kuona past certain things about you, because yes, nobody is perfect, sindio? We are all like double-edged swords. We all have yin and yang. We all have black and white. We all have good and bad. We all have light and darkness, sindio? But kuna mtu mwenye hatawaiona light yako hata ufanyaje, na the only thing yenye atakuwa anakukumbusha about ni that darkness that they see. They will always remind you of your mistakes. They will always remind you of your slip-ups. They will always remind you of every bad thing that they feel like they should be reminding you of, just to humble you. Okay, just to humble you, just because they don't want you to be able to tap into your light. And unless you know that that light exists, you will always think that it's only the darkness that exists, especially if you are spending long periods of time with this person. Especially if this person is like a big part of your environment, or okay. So that is why I call for studying yourself, knowing yourself deeply and truly, to the extent that no matter what anybody else projects, you can always sieve through all that. You can always know what is actually true about yourself and what is not true about yourself. Because yes, a rose is beautiful. Roses are beautiful and they also have thorns. But does it mean that the beauty makes the thorns disappear entirely? No. And does it mean that the thorns make the beauty of the rose disappear entirely? No. It is the embodiment of both, right? It is in our ability to be able to be ourselves wholly and truly, being able to exactly, that's the word I've been looking for. Not even embodiment, integration. It's the integration of the whole. Mnakumbuka kwa hiyo series ya The Metaphysics of the Mind tukisema the point is to integrate your shadow plus everything else, to the extent that no part of you feels as though you don't love it, or as though you prefer the other to them, like sasa in terms of your internal self. No part of you in you feels like you unaidharau ama you don't take care of it. You don't want to shine a light on it, no matter how dark it is. Yeah, that's the whole point of integration. And up until you learn how to integrate, people will always find a way to make you just remember how you have thorns more than how beautiful you are. And I feel like that is unfair, especially for people who don't self-reflect and people who don't know themselves. Like deep down unajua tu huyu msee, nilikuwa nasema like deep down unajua tu huyu msee definitely ana move blind. They are moving so blindly in this lifetime, but for some reason their words tend to hold so much water. This person just wants to project you in this one light. They want to paint you out as the bad person. They want to paint you out as the villain in their story always. Alafu sasa unaona unaishi nao for long, hadi unaanza kujiuliza ama nakuanga hivyo vile huyu mtu ananiona for real, ni mimi ndo najidanganya. You start questioning yourself. If you don't form a strong opinion about yourself, you will internalize it. You will. And I'm saying this from experience, especially if it is like somebody close to you. I wanna feel so empathetic towards people who have their mothers as their bullies. Like, fuck. What do you mean the person who's supposed to be loving you unconditionally is your first bully? They're the ones who are planting all those seeds of doubt in you. They're the ones who are skewing your perception of yourself, And many others. It doesn't even just have to be your mom or your dad. It could be your uncle, your auntie, your cousin, your sister, your brother. It could be anybody, your friend. This friend just wants to point out the way, unakumbuka ile siku the way they just want to point out your failures, your slip-ups. They want to only be referring to that one time that they did something that pushed you and you had to react, but they just want to point at that reaction. They don't want to speak about what led to that reaction or anything like that. So now you start forming this, they plant the seed of that false identity in you, and then you overthinking about it and actually feeding into it makes it grow. Yeah. And I think hata nimemaliza. You need to be rooted in your authenticity and in your truth. You need to be able to be that kind of person mwenye nikiwa hapa, hizi vitu zenye nasema ninaweza zirudia nikiwa nimepelekwa mbele ya umati, naweza zirudia nikiwa nimepelekwa juu ya mountain, naweza zirudia nikiwa peke yangu in my own space. You don't have to be two-faced. You can just be who you are. Knowing yourself deep enough to the extent that nobody outside of yourself can actually come and tell you something new about yourself. Because I've already been thinking about that about myself. Yes, I know I have this trait that is not the best, and I have been analyzing it in my head for the longest. It's not news to me when you come and tell me, or when you want to spread it. It's not news to me, yeah. Authenticity, mi nita preach to authenticity in your identity. Authenticity in your identity. Learn yourself deeply enough to know who you are, so that you don't internalize other people's opinions and projections. That is how the enemies of your soul get you. If like literally you internalize everything that people just say and do around you, that is how the enemies of your soul get you. Hapo ndo unapata badala ya concentrate na focus on the things that you actually want, you end up giving them your attention and your time. You end up overthinking about what they said more than even doing what you are supposed to do. And you know that is just like the wrong representation of who you are. It is a misrepresentation of the person you are. Whether you want to call it a weakness or a strength, it is still a misrepresentation. Don't give them that power. And such people usually thrive on you giving away your power. You trying to explain yourself, no, usinione hivyo, mimi siko hivyo, niko hivi. No, don't do that. You know how you are able to stay on top of such people? Silence. Silence, and then just anchoring yourself more and more in your authenticity and your truth. The more they think you are the thorns and not the whole of the rose plus the thorns, the more you continue being the whole of the rose plus the thorns. Na with time, maybe watachoka, maybe hawatachoka, but the more they keep projecting, I feel like the more you should actually now immerse yourself in authenticity and truth. In authenticity and truth. Use that energy that they send your way, transmute it, alchemize it to propel your life further. And mina feelingi, you don't need to struggle to prove a point to anybody. I used to, this is the last thought and then I close out the video. I used to be this kind of person that would actually also just live and do things to prove people wrong. And I realized I don't need to prove anybody wrong. I just need to live my life. And if I'm truthful, it will automatically prove them wrong anyway. But if I'm doing it to prove them wrong, I end up losing my essence. I end up now being that thing that they are saying I am. Right? Yeah. Stand up for yourself always. Jijue. Self-reflection is important. Solitude is important. Isolation is important for you to be able to know yourself. Na ukijijua hakuna mtu kwa dunia ataweza kukwambia we ni nani, ni kama haujui. Na hata mtu mwenye anakuambia we ni nani utakuwa unajua kama hiyo ni uongo ama hiyo ni ukweli. You won't internalize it. natilia msisitizo kwa sababu ni kama ninafaa kusikia hii message hata mimi. Ati natilia msisitizo, natilia mkazo, nasisitiza, po. Anyway, I offer birth chart readings, and a birth chart is simply a tool that you can use to expand your self-awareness. How the celestial bodies were arranged during your time of birth usually point out towards certain aspects about yourself that you can be able to learn through that birth chart. So you can always book me for a reading through my Linktree, or just DM me and I'll be able to assist you further on that. I've just remembered something that I actually wanted to say at the beginning of the video, but now that I forgot it at the beginning of the video, let me just say it now and then I close at the video. Unaona the previous video on like my ramblings on hypersexualization and all that, I was thinking about the fact that I was just mentioning things that were done to me, and there's actually times that it was me now being the perpetrator, since I didn't know any better. And I have this thing in my head where I usually just like question, okay, you know, you put out your videos out there for people to see. Maybe one of the people watching feels like you're a perpetrator, and for real you are a perpetrator. So how are they supposed to interact with your content? And I realized that, yeah, I didn't know any better. If I was a perpetrator, I didn't know any better. And as a person who self-reflects, I feel like if I'm choosing to be consciously aware of the impact that certain things had in my life growing up, and the impact that some of the things I did had in other people's lives, and I'm choosing to consciously work through it, then maybe I should cut myself some slack. But if ever apologies are needed, I don't have a problem of offering them. So why am I like, niache kujipiga sana about, what will somebody else think if you are the perpetrator? Yeah, I might just pull a Neo and sing a sorry song to everybody. No, I'm not even joking. It's just, yeah, I was thinking about it, because it just can't be, I'm not the victim always. It just can't be, you know, this and this happened to me. People did this to me. Yeah, sometimes I was the one doing things to people, you know. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life. And it is up to me to recognize it and acknowledge it and decide on what I want to do with the realizations that I have gotten in the now about those situations in the past, right? Anyway, yeah. Other than that, follow us on our social media handles at your local your local.pothead on Instagram, and my main Instagram account at _nyagoha. The rest of the accounts, I'll be attaching them at the end of this video. Go be great. Go live the biggest life you can ever conjure up in your mind. Your local pothead out.